This is Steve Vanderbilt, RegimeChange.org. I've been thinking about something for the last couple of days, and really just want to talk about it for a few minutes. I've been watching the politicians for the last several years rattle the swords about Iran. Saying Iran's about to get a nuke and all these other things. This is very much a beat the drum thing like it was with Iraq. But we, the people of the United States, the citizens who elect these politicians, we need to think about something. And that something is the word why. You ever ask yourself the question why Iran feels the way it does? Well, here's some facts about this. In the late 40s, mid 40s, Iran was a peaceful country right after the end of the Second World War, did not get involved in the Second World War really, and they had a democratically elected leader. Well, Iran also had oil, and that was a problem for U.S. oil companies because that leader didn't want them to pump oil. So in comes the Central Intelligence Agency, and they destabilize the government and get this guy, basically drive him from power in a trumped-up coup that reseats a U.S.-friendly dictator called the Shah. Now, anybody that's was born before 76 knows everything about the Shah of Iran. He was a puppet dictator who had cancer, left the country, and this bad extremist called the Ayatollah Khomeini caused the Iranian people to rise up, and they swarmed our embassy, and they held American citizens hostage for a long time. Okay. Jimmy Carter does everything he can to get the hostages free. Can't get it done. Basically, Ronald Reagan gets elected, steps into office, and literally when Reagan steps into the office, the Iranians let the hostages go. Big thump the chest victory for Ron Reagan. Not the case, but he took credit for it. And basically, since that period of time, 80-ish or so, to today, Iran's been relatively peaceful in dealing with the United States. You have to remember that subsequent presidents put sanctions on Iran where they couldn't sell things or do these things. They couldn't get parts for their fighter aircraft that we had sold them under the Shah's regime and everything else to protect themselves. But really, Iran has been pretty much a mouse. And the big bad eagle in the United States has been, through the Central Intelligence Agency, has been picking on them. Now, I'm a vet. I know how our government works. It says one thing and does something else. Hurry up and wait is the dictum in the military. But think about it. Let's switch coins. If Iran had toppled our democratically elected leader and put us in an oppressive state and funded our government to develop a Gestapo/Stasi-style police that would come into your house in the middle of the night and take your wife or your husband or your children, your aunts, your uncles, your brothers, your sisters away in the middle of the night. You never saw them again. Wouldn't you get a little angry? You bet your ass you would. See, Americans, we like to fight. We can say we're pacifists and everything, but I can grab almost any pacifist on the street, and if you push them, they're going to take a swing at you. It's innately an American issue. There was a book written once that said Americans are great boiler makers, which means we're great bomb makers. And that's the truth. We like to fight. We also have a good spirit. We like to, after we kick somebody around, we like to give them money and rebuild everything and try to make peaceful friendship with them after we kick the crap out of them. Never worked in a bar fight, and it doesn't really work as a global policy. It just puts us deeper in debt because we have to pay for our guilt. So really, if you want to look at the issue of Iran, Iran's got a beef with the United States, and it's because of the Central Intelligence Agency. Now, you also look in the newspapers today, and they're talking about how the Central Intelligence Agency laced LSD in French bread 50 years ago. Yeah. And we try to call ourselves the good guys. France was our ally 50 years ago, where we're talking right after the Second World War, 1950, 1960. They were our allies still. You think about that. If your friend came over and dumped a bunch of LSD in a bread that you were baking, and you gave it to your kids and your family and everybody else, and killed 5 people in your family, does France have a beef with us now? Yeah. When you are able to operate in the shadows without any type of really public governance, you try to get away with everything. Think about it. When you were a kid, did you try to get into the cookie jar when your mom didn't know? It's human behavior. It's what we do. But those are some things that I've been thinking about. Don't trust your government. Don't trust the CIA. I mean, I could rant on and on about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, the whole issue about Afghanistan, the two-sided war we played in Afghanistan with the Russians during the Cold War, but yet left the Afghanis to hang when the Russians left because they were no longer of consequence to us. The CIA is a player and a user, and our government plays the player and the user. Politics is a dirty business because we, the people, refuse to hold our politicians accountable. And I personally feel with the legislation that's been put forth over the last couple of years, going back to the Patriot Act and before, that our government is lining up against us. It only takes the stroke of a pen with some of the laws that have been passed, and we have U.S. troops on our streets. The question is, will a U.S. troop fire on a U.S. citizen? Well, that's why they've come up with joint force agreements and why the United States military trains with other nationalities. Now, they call it nation-building exercises, but if you read the documents that have been going around lately being the last 2-3 years, the military is preparing for civil unrest in the United States. Now, they do it under the guises of a Katrina-style event, but they also say under economic issues or upon the discretion of the President of the United States. That's too much power in one man's hands. That makes him a dictator. And right now, Barack Obama is just a benevolent dictator. He hasn't exercised his power, just as George Bush was a benevolent dictator when he seamlessly handed over power to Barack Obama. Does that make them honorable? Or does that make them controlled by an individual special interest? History will tell us. Call me pessimistic, call me crazy. I'm neither, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. These are mainstream media notes we're talking about here. If you disagree with what I say, open your eyes and go read for yourself. We're working on the website, and we'll get our links back up for our archives. But until then, that's something for you to think about today. Good day.